Hello again. So a few videos ago, I was talking about what I called invasion by mosque. Um, People start a mosque, then they start trying to change the neighborhood around it, and basically forcing you to do their will, if you want to put it that way. And I raised the question: is this Islamophobic? And I mentioned I will probably do a video on Islamophobia, which this is it. So, let me start off with saying I too belong to a evangelical religion, and that is one thing. Islam, part of their belief is they should spread Islam to the world. Christianity, part of our belief is we should spread Christianity to the world. So any criticism made about Islam can be made about Christianity potentially. Now, one nature of evangelical religions is, you want to spread your religion because you believe it's right and everyone else is wrong. So to that extent, we're both going to have to criticize each other. The difference is, Christ said, if they hated me, they will hate you. He actually told his followers they would be in the minority, if they're following him at least properly, because people use religion to justify doing all sorts of stuff, which they shouldn't. And so we get into, oh, well, he's not a real Christian, he's a fake Christian. And we can do the same with Islam, the jihadists, they're not doing it the right way. And so we get people trying to justify or trying to explain away things they don't like. And again, go back to the Bible. It very clearly says there are going to be plenty of people who say, Lord, Lord, haven't we done all this stuff in your name? And he'll say, no, I don't know you. So there are going to, the Bible particularly tells Christians there are going to be plenty of false Christians out there. Islam, I don't know. I've never read the Quran. I don't know if it talks about false teachings being taught by other, people claiming to be followers of it. Don't know. But if such a thing does exist, then we should be able to criticize actions of people claiming to be Muslim. And we aren't allowed to. You can say anything you want about Christians, whether they are actually following Christ or not following Christ, but other religions, suddenly it's wrong. So, Islamophobia. It's a false concept. Either that or we should have Christian phobia, which no one talks about. And again, understandably, they're going to disagree with Christianity. I'm going to disagree with Islam. That should be an inherent part of any evangelical religion, is people are going to disagree with you. But to say one is wrong and the other is not is itself wrong. Ultimately, God will sort it out from a religious point of view. If you really believe in if you really have faith in your religion, then you will know that ultimately God will step in and force it out, work things out. So let's get into this. See videos, people, British student talking about how they're learning about, not learning British history, but learning about Islam, which we learned a little bit in school. World history, it's the Ottoman Empire and the rise of Islam and all that did affect history, so we learned a little bit about it. What did we learn about their practices? 5 pillars of Islam. You make the declaration, there's only one God and Muhammad is his prophet. You have have the, I believe it's called the Hajj. They all have names. We don't learn all the names in school, or we didn't. They might now. So basically, a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your lifetime, I think, is what we were taught. I think there are some people who do try to do it multiple times. I don't know why. Again, we didn't go deeply into it. We just learned the basics. Because, yeah, you do want to respect other cultures. It doesn't influence world history. It doesn't influence things. So you got to know a little bit about it. It's not the school's job to convert you to a different religion, or even to teach Christianity. So, giving alms, I looked it up. Yeah, I remembered 4 of these. Alms is the one I forgot. So I looked it up, and I think 2.5% is what's suggested. I don't know if that's the official, but that's sort of 2.5% of your income is expected to be given alms, according to one site I looked up. Okay, got no problem with giving to charity, as long as my thought there is I pick the charity. I don't want an outsider telling me, oh, you have to give your money here. That's why I don't like taxes. Fasting during Ramadan, so I think it's during Ramadan. And that's, again, it's not for the entire month, it's just between sunrise and sunset you fast. Got no problem with that. And the 5th one, prayer 5 times a day. That one I got a little problem with. I believe in prayer. I don't like the idea of ritual prayer, or I think prayer should be spontaneous. You want to thank God, you thank God. It's not repeating the same thing over and over. It's not, you must pray these times a day. It becomes meaningless if it's obligatory. It becomes meaningless. So saying you must do it, the Jews do it before and after the Sabbath. Yeah, I understand why they do it, but if they're just repeating the same thing and it's obligatory, it sort of becomes meaningless. Muslims do it 5 times a day. Then we get into Sharia law, which no one really understands. I mean, Sharia law, it's the same equivalent as looking at the Old Testament and saying, we must employ all these laws. Which I do believe in Old Testament law. But again, as I said in another earlier video, Israel was given civil authority when they were given the law. And they lost that when they were taken into captivity, and it was never given back. So the idea, people wanting to say, we should be enforcing this. No, we shouldn't be. Again, that comes down to do it if you want. Let God sort the rest out. Which again, New Testament, read the book of Revelations. God's going to sort things out. It's not our job to do it. So Spanish Inquisition, etc., all this stuff where people were trying to enforce Christianity on people, that was not Christian. We get back, the Quran specifically talks about, jihads and, stepping on the neck of your enemies or whatever. And again, I hear a lot of quotes. That's the same as saying, well, they were told to stone adulterers back in the Old Testament. And it's, we don't have the civil authority to carry through on that. I don't think anyone does, including the jihadists. You don't have the civil authority to impose your will on us. The difference is more Christian. We talk about it as rhetoric, but we don't actually do it because we sort of realize we can't do it. Whereas there are branches of Islam, sects, whatever you want to call it, who specifically think they should be doing it. Not everyone. I've got a lot of friends who are Muslim. They're nice people. Yeah, they came here. They realize that they're living in a mixed culture. We talk about diversity and all this stuff, and that means not imposing your will on other people as much as accepting them. So yeah, you want to come here, you want to practice your religion, fine. Just don't try to force me to do it. There's your diversity. But no, you've got to, and of course we got a bunch of progressives who want to say no, they have the right to try to force you to do it their way. If you drink a beer, you are insulting them, so stop drinking. If you own a dog, you are insulting them, so don't own a dog, etc. No. You have a right to come here and not own a dog yourself, not drink yourself, not do whatever yourself. But then we get into Sharia law, and how deeply is it? I think in the past 20 years, there have been 2 incidents where someone has killed, like, I think in both cases they killed their daughter because they were dating someone the guy didn't like. And so he has shamed the family. And so, according to Sharia law, the father could kill her. And like I said, twice in the past 20 years I've heard stories about this. So the whole idea, oh, they're going to come and impose Sharia law and we're going to have, children being murdered by their parents on a daily basis. No. We've had a few extreme people doing it. Now that is a reason to question Sharia law a little and say, how far do we want to allow people to do it under the name of freedom of religion? That's a valid question. We don't, there's always someone who brings up, well, I'm an Aztec, I can do human sacrifices then. And they use that as an argument against other religions. It's always an atheist doing this, it's always on a college campus. And the answer is no, you can't, because that's not what freedom of religion was meant to uphold. And killing your children because you think they shame your family is also something that freedom of religion is not meant to uphold. And yes, I just insulted some Muslims for saying that. There are other Muslims who say, he's right. We shouldn't be doing that. So which ones do I worry about? And that goes to our next problem is, when is it Islamophobic? There are different sects of Islam. You got the Sunni and the Sufi, and there are actually wars going on, where everyone talks Middle East, oh, it's the Arabs against the Jews. No, there are actually other wars going on where different sects of Islam were fighting each other because they disagreed with what was said. We go back to the declaration, Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet. So if Muhammad is his prophet, then the Quran is the word of God. And if the Quran is the word of God, then there should only be one way to interpret it. And no, we have different groups wanting to interpret it differently, and they fight amongst each other. And so this idea, oh, we have to worry because the Muslims are going to try to take over there. They don't agree with each other. And if you don't agree with each other, then that should also give me the right to disagree with you. It should give me the right to question your religion. I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, although, again, as a follower of an evangelical religion, I acknowledge that I believe it's wrong. I also acknowledge that no one really understands Christianity 100%, so there are interpretations to that, so that's one reason I don't try to force it on people. So yeah, everything I said against Islam so far in this video, I say against Christianity as well. And it's not hateful, it's just the way things are. Okay, now, seeing a lot of video, the phrase Islamist has come up, which I've only heard within the past year. So it's always Islam is the religion, the people are called Muslims. Go back to older books, Mohammedan will sometimes be used. Basically, you follow the philosophy of Muhammad, you are Mohammedan. And I think that was used more as a way of saying this is not really the word of God, it's the word of Muhammad. I don't know exactly why they started that, but maybe it was because the people who were teaching Islam were quoting Muhammad by name. Muhammad said such and such, and it was just assumed he is the prophet. So by saying he says it, you're saying that Allah said it. That would make sense. But so, some older books you will see Mohammedan used. Some very old ones, like I think Jules Verne back in the 1800s, used the term Musselman, like Musselman, to refer to Muslims. Don't know where that came from. But recently, Islamist has come up. And it seems to be, again, either the uses of it are either people trying to force Islam on the rest of the world. You must stop doing this because it offends me. Or just people trying to convert others, which again, it's an evangelical religion. I understand you want to convert people. Now, again, the difference is Christianity. We were told, if you read the Bible, you were told if someone disagrees with you, if someone doesn't want to listen to you, walk away. Shake the dust off your boots or off your sandals and walk away, is the way it's phrased. I know there are some groups who will literally go door to door, and if you say you're not interested, they will, as they walk away, they will like shake their feet. I don't think that's quite what was meant literally. I think it was meant more of just a have nothing more to do with them. Don't try to bother them anymore. And again, it's not we're going to come back later and invade and force them to do it, as historically has happened with Islam and with Christianity in some cases. It is let God sort it out later. Now, the one biggest problem I have. So again, you have declaration, one God, Muhammad is his prophet. Therefore, the word of Muhammad is the word of God. And criticizing that can get you in trouble. Salman Rushdie, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I forget exactly when, wrote a book, Satanic Verses. The premise of that was actually based on the Quran. There's a part where Muhammad's getting messages from demonesses. There were like 3 demonesses in particular, and he finds out about it, and then he gets a word from, I think it's supposed to be Gabriel, telling him, no, we sent them as messengers. Which, I mean, if you go to other places in the Quran and other religious texts, the Bible and all that, it's like, no, you don't listen to demons ever. And, God would not use a demon to deliver a message. And so that became questionable. Salman Rushdie wrote a book about this, emphasizing this verse as the main premise of his book, and basically had a price put on his head. We had the case in Texas where someone did a political cartoon, made a caricature of Muhammad, had a price put on his head. Again, Christianity, we don't like it when people mock Christ or mock God or our beliefs, but they're allowed to. We understand, if they're following the Bible, it's going to happen. And you can't stop it. God will sort it out later. So this idea, we're going to put a price on your head if you disagree with us, I have a problem with that, especially when you're criticizing my holy works. You say, you believe Jesus was a prophet. Okay. Only he did things differently than the Bible said. So the Quran wants to rewrite the Bible. Now, if I'm not allowed to criticize the Quran and I have to accept you criticize the Bible, you've got a weak religion. I don't, no. I'm not going to apologize for saying that, because you have a double standard, and double standards are the hallmark of a weak religion. No, you will never convert me. If you want to say, yes, people are going to criticize us, and we will accept it because we can't force them to do it, and Allah will sort it out later, fine. I'm happy with that. I don't believe Allah will sort it out later because I'm not a Muslim. But you're allowed to believe that. So there it is. Like I said, I know some nice, Muslims. I know some Muslims who are very radical. I criticize the later, not the former. Does that make me Islamophobic? No, because I don't hate someone just because they follow Islam. I hate people because they are radical, trying to force me to follow their religion, which I disagree with. They can't prove it to me. That's it. So everything labeled Islamophobic in the world isn't. In fact, it's a very double standard labeling things as Islamophobic most of the time, which isn't to say that you have to hate all Islam, or Muslims. It's just saying that you're allowed to disagree with them verbally. And even if that upsets them, it's not Islamophobic just because you upset someone, because the other choice is to convert, which is Christianophobic, if you want to call it that way. Make up a name. In reality, I don't have to make up a name to continue to follow my religion. And yes, you do have a right to disagree with it. Because again, no apologies made here, I have the stronger religion. If you're going to have a fit because I disagree with your beliefs, that's weak. I'm not harming you, I'm not forcing you to follow me. I'm just let me do my thing, you do your thing, God will sort it out in the end. That is strength. Have a nice day.